Hi, Mark, and today I want to talk about some more British aid for the Ukraine and some more details on the war, like sabotage. The UK is ready to allocate $500 million in additional funds to Ukraine in the form of secured loans. Added to this is another $670 million in new loans for developing countries. This was announced by Chancellor of the Exchequer Jeremy Hunt on Thursday during the spring meeting of the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, in Washington, D.C. Hunt confirmed the UK is ready to provide another $500 million in secured loans to Ukraine, bringing this year's total to $1 billion and the UK's total pledged support to Ukraine to £6.5 billion. The $1 billion budget support we have pledged to Ukraine this year will ensure the country has the financial means to put on lights, run hospitals, and open schools, Hunt said. Britain had previously pledged £2.3 billion in military aid to Ukraine and pledged to double that amount by 2023. Britain is also hosting a training program supported by several allies to train 30,000 new and existing Ukrainian soldiers by the end of 2023. The Chancellor of the Exchequer also pledged, as I said, $670 million to help fight poverty and boost growth in developing countries. And Ukraine has also long hoped for Western warplanes to defend against the Russian invasion. But the delivery of the 13 MiG-29 jets from Slovakia could be fatal for the defenders. According to media reports from Slovakia, Russian technicians are said to have sabotaged them on their way to Ukraine. According to the report, the technicians who worked at a Slovakian Air Force base until the end of 2022 had access to the jets and appeared to have damaged some parts before their delivery to the Ukrainian capital of Kiev. Slovakia's Defense Minister Jaroslav Nat said the jets are airworthy, but that doesn't mean they are combat ready, according to the Kiev Independent. The Business Insider and the British Telegraph also reported on the matter. Ned added that the defects in the jets occurred only in the parts that were entered by Russians. The technicians were hired on a long-term contract to perform major repairs on Soviet-era jets. The damage should be repairable, so Ned. According to him, Ukraine has the resources to fix the shortcomings and make the jets fully operational again. They have pilots, spare parts, and a company that has been working on MiGs since Soviet times, he said. Weeks ago, Slovakia and Poland pledged to send their remaining MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine. The Soviet-designed jets are not much different from Ukraine's own MiG-29s, according to Ned. And according to Ned, Slovakia will receive 200 million euros from the European Union in compensation and unspecified arms from the United States worth 700 million euros. Slovakia has not had its MiGs in service since the summer of 22 due to lack of spare parts and experienced maintenance technicians after Russian specialists returned to their homeland. And the German government has now given Poland approval for the delivery of Soviet-designed combat aircraft to Ukraine. This was announced by the Federal Ministry of Defense on Thursday in Berlin after several media had previously reported on it. Poland wants to pass on 5 MiG-29 jets from GDR old stock that it had acquired from Germany. Defense Minister Boris Pistorius sees no change in course for Western combat aircraft, though, after the federal government gave the green light for the transfer of MiG-29 combat aircraft from Poland to Ukraine. Everything that helps quickly is important, said the politician on Thursday in Bamako, the capital of Mali. It's about MiGs because they can be used immediately by the Ukrainian armed forces, because they are known, because they can be flown immediately, because both maintenance and repair can be carried out almost seamlessly. That's what Pistorius said. None of this applies to Western aircraft, especially those that we have in Germany. That's why we don't have this debate here, he said. Pistorius, who continued his trip in West Africa, announced that formal written confirmation to the Polish government for permission to re-export to Ukraine would go out on Friday when I'm filming this. An application that was only received in Berlin on Thursday was approved within a few hours. These are aircraft that Germany gave to Poland in 2003. The Bundeswehr had taken it over from the former stocks of the National People's Army, the NVA of the GDR, former East Germany. According to British intelligence services, the Ukraine defenses are still holding the western districts of the heavily contested city of Bakhmut in eastern Ukraine. In the past 48 hours, however, they had been exposed to particularly heavy Russian artillery fire, according to the British Ministry of Defense in London on Friday. The reason for this is that the armed forces of the Russian Ministry of Defense and the Russian mercenary group Wagner cooperate better. According to the British Secret Services, the Ukrainian armed forces are facing significant supply problems. However, they would have withdrawn in an orderly manner from positions that they had to give up. In the center of the city, Wagner assault groups continued to conduct the main advance, while Russian airborne troops relieved some Wagner units, securing the operation's northern and southern flanks, it said. According to both warring parties, the situation in the eastern Ukrainian city of Bakhmut, which has been heavily fought over for months, has deteriorated further in recent days. According to their own statements, after months of fighting and heavy losses, the Russian attackers had recently gained ground and conquered around 80% of Bakhmut. Kiev, on the other hand, does not want to give up the city, which has now been almost completely destroyed, despite the problems. In this way, Ukraine wants to force the Russian attackers to carry out costly attacks and wear the Moscow troops down in this way. The British Ministry of Defense has published daily information on the course of the war since the beginning of the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, citing intelligence information. In doing so, the British government wants to both counter the Russian propaganda and inform the Allies. Moscow accuses London of a disinformation campaign, though. But according to the British Secret Services, the Russian leadership is having increasing problems conveying the Ukraine war to its own people. According to a short report by the British Ministry of Defense on Thursday, Russian President Vladimir Putin is placing the special military operation in the context of the Soviet experience in World War II. Every year on May 9th, Russia celebrates the Day of Victory, on which the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany in 1945 is celebrated with pompous military parades. The fallen are commemorated and veterans who are still alive are honored. Honoring the fallen of previous generations could easily expose the scale of recent losses in Ukraine, which the Kremlin is trying to cover up, London said. This message could also be increasingly uncomfortable for the many Russians who have direct insight into the failing operation in Ukraine. The British also see the cancellation of several military parades in Russian border regions near Ukraine and on the annexed Crimean Peninsula on May 9th as a sign of this development. According to official information, the cancellations also had to do with security concerns, they said in London. The United States, for example, is a large supporter of Ukraine in the Ukraine war, measured by bilateral assistance provided between January 24th and 22 and February 24th and 23. The US has so far provided around 71.3 billion euros in bilateral assistance, of which about 43.2 billion euros in the form of military support and 24.5 billion euros in the form of financial support, and around 3.6 billion euros in the form of humanitarian aid. After the total amount of purely bilateral support, the United Kingdom follows with around 9.8 billion euros. Without the German share of EU aid, Germany is the third largest donor with around 7.3 billion euros. The EU, as a confederation of states, has so far provided support of around 29.9 billion euros. If one adds the shares of EU aid borne by the individual EU countries to the bilateral payments of the countries, the ranking of the biggest supporters of Ukraine is different. The USA are still the biggest supporters of Ukraine in the Ukraine war, measured by bilateral support provided between January 24th, 22 and February 24th in 23. As I said, it's about 71.3 billion euros. But then next comes Germany. In addition to bilateral aid of around 7.37 billion euros, Germany's share of the support payments from the EU is around 7.3 billion euros. So in total, Germany's support payments amount to over 14 billion. If you put everything together, Germany has to pay. And so in that case, the UK is only in third place. I published that in another video before, but still there are some trolls even claiming the British are the number one supporter. No, they are not. The USA are. But I want to put that into perspective once again with proper facts and calculating in everything. And not only the bilateral aid, but everything a country has to pay for it. The British are doing a great job in supporting Ukraine. I said that in several videos, and as much as I criticize this government, that is one thing where they are doing a good job. But in this situation that these trolls are coming there and still putting lies in the comments, that is something I cannot leave uncommented because it's total bullcrap. And so now you have the proper figures and you can see the facts. And another fact might be that I'm ruining my career today here on YouTube. There is a new game on Outside Vies Games that came up at the same time as the video yesterday, and I forgot to comment on that in the video yesterday. So if you missed the start of the new game on Outside Vies Games yesterday, have a look now and play that game. And that probably will end my career here on YouTube, this game, but still have fun with it, and we'll see if I'm still there tomorrow. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.